The movie begins with Roman giving instructions to Jeremiah, who has been hired to drive a special girl, Crystal. Roman warns Jeremiah not to get close to her or even talk to her, emphasizing the importance of maintaining distance. Despite Jeremiah's initial reluctance and questioning why he was chosen for the job, Roman reassures him by stating that Jeremiah is strong, a quality needed for the task ahead. Jeremiah went to Oliver and they started having a heated conversation. Jeremiah is firm in his refusal to go along with a plan that Oliver is proposing. Oliver is insistent, arguing that their target will pay a ransom because he has a lot of money and is involved in illegal activities. Oliver believes the target won't want the police involved and will pay because he cares about the person they're threatening. Despite Oliver's arguments and his confidence in the plan, Jeremiah's final response is a resolute no, ending the conversation on a note of finality and tension. Crystal is on stage about to perform something, then the scene shifts to an older guy trying to kiss her, but she is not interested and is trying to shrug the guy off of her. As this was happening, Bill walked in. The older guy got up and started calling Jeremiah and tried to walk to the door, but he was stopped by Bill. Bill then slit his throat and the old man collapses. Crystal kept looking at the security camera. Bill, Roman, and Nikki are discussing Crystal and the potential danger she poses. Bill expresses concern about Crystal changing her mind, mentioning that his blood is coursing through her, which makes her a threat to the driver. Roman suggests that Crystal, being human, will not kill the driver and claims to understand her better because of this. The conversation shifts to the effects of the disease, with a plan to place something with the driver's scent in the back of the car to ensure Crystal will kill him, making her belong to Roman. Nikki expresses their willingness to take Crystal's place and pledges loyalty to Roman, criticizing Crystal's feelings for the driver and predicting that she will push the driver away to save him. Jeremiah drove Crystal, and as she was getting out of the car, she tripped and he caught her. They stood close for a while, about to kiss. In this scene, Jeremiah confronts Oliver, making it clear that Oliver cannot touch Crystal. Oliver mockingly questions Jeremiah, insinuating that Jeremiah might be in love with her. Despite Oliver's sarcastic assurance that they won't harm her, Jeremiah remains serious and unyielding. Crystal injects something into her veins, signifying a significant moment of transformation or preparation. She then discarded a framed photograph and went upstairs. As she ascends the stairs, the tension heightens when two masked men suddenly appear and attempt to kidnap her. However, as they lead her downstairs, Crystal undergoes a dramatic transformation into a vampire and violently attacks one of her captors. In a surprising turn of events, the second masked man removes his mask, revealing himself to be Oliver. Oliver strikes Crystal with a pipe, rendering her unconscious. Jeremiah is sitting with Daniel when he receives a text message instructing him to pick up Crystal. Jeremiah prepares to leave, but Daniel begins to question him. Daniel mentions hearing about Jeremiah driving a girl named Crystal and inquires if it is at the club where Oliver used to work. Jeremiah, clearly in a hurry, tries to brush off the questions, stating he needs to go. Despite Jeremiah's attempt to leave, Daniel continues, expressing his concern and nostalgia for their friendship. He admits he no longer hangs out with their group, but insists that he still considers Jeremiah his best friend. Jeremiah jokingly asks if they are going to kiss, to which Daniel responds with a serious tone, emphasizing his genuine concern. He brings up a recent string of murders reported outside similar places, and mentions a mysterious figure, described as a brother who thinks he's John Wayne, whose presence led to a sudden termination of the investigation. Daniel warns Jeremiah to avoid getting involved in anything dangerous, showing his worry for Jeremiah's well-being and highlighting his knowledge of the club's suspicious activities. Bill informs Roman that a ransom demand has been made for Crystal. Bill explains that in addition to a ransom note, there was a phone call from an unblocked number. He reminds Roman that Crystal comes from a wealthy family and doesn't need to be involved in their dangerous world. Bill suggests that this ransom demand could be Roman's opportunity to extricate himself from the complications surrounding Crystal. He advises Roman to simply do nothing. However, Roman's response is cold and decisive. He expresses his fatigue with the situation and orders Bill to kill the kidnappers and bring Crystal back. Jeremiah receives a voicemail from Oliver, who explains they went through with their plan involving Crystal. Oliver warns Jeremiah not to go to the location where Crystal is being held and urges him to stay out of it. He assures Jeremiah that he will receive his share and emphasizes the importance of doing nothing. Oliver ends the message by advising Jeremiah to sit tight and not take any action. Despite this, Jeremiah went to where Crystal was in and saw she was bruised. He then picked up a pipe and went straight to a bar where Oliver and his accomplice were drinking and attacked the accomplice. He then screamed at Oliver to give him the keys. Bill came to the bar after Jeremiah left. He shoots the bartender and sees Oliver. He shoots Oliver's accomplice, and fearing of dying, Oliver tells him where Crystal is and that Jeremiah is with her. However, Bill ended up killing him too. Jeremiah went to Crystal and removed her handcuffs, promising to take her back. However, Crystal refuses, expressing that she doesn't care about her fate and is more concerned about what happens to him. She pushes Jeremiah away, insisting she can't go to a hospital or back to where she was held. She pleads with him to help her escape instead, warning that Roman will come after them and that Bill is already present. Jeremiah takes out a knife, but Crystal implores him not to fight Bill, emphasizing the futility and danger of such a confrontation. She urges him that they need to leave immediately, leading them to make their escape together. As Jeremiah and Crystal run to the car, Bill follows closely behind. Just as Jeremiah is about to start the car, Bill reaches them and smashes the window. Despite the sudden attack, Jeremiah manages to get the car started. Daniel receives a call and heads to the crime scene, where Oliver and the others have been murdered. Detective Hobbs, his colleague, asks if Daniel knows any of the victims, and Daniel denies it. However, Daniel discovers a picture in Oliver's pocket that includes himself, and he quickly hid it. He then visits the latent print examiner and inquires about the fingerprints found on the iron pipe. She informs him that the prints belong to Oliver and Jeremiah. Daniel instructs her to keep this information confidential until he tells her to disclose it. Jeremiah seeks help from Arnie. He borrows a car from Arnie and leaves Crystal with him before meeting up with Daniel, who is shocked to see Jeremiah. Meanwhile, Crystal, now conscious, stares at Arnie as he wakes up. Arnie then receives a call from Jeremiah, who urgently informs him that Oliver and Max are dead. Arnie stresses the danger they are in, warning Jeremiah to leave everything and give up Crystal. Jeremiah, however, insists on explaining. He reveals that the killer is on his way to Arnie's location, and pleads for Arnie to keep Crystal safe. Arnie suggests taking Crystal to his secluded cabin, which he believes is a safe hiding place. Jeremiah asks Arnie if he has a gun, and Arnie confirms that he does. Jeremiah then requests the gun. After the conversation, Jeremiah goes to confront Bill with a gun. Bill presents Jeremiah with an ultimatum. If Jeremiah brings Crystal back, Bill will split the proceeds 50-50 with him. However, if Jeremiah fails to do so, the consequences will be dire and certain. Bill gives Jeremiah until the end of the next night to comply, warning him that if he misses the deadline, or if anything happens to Crystal, Bill's promise of retribution will be absolute and unavoidable. Arnie is driving Crystal when she suddenly asks him to stop the car. Blood begins to pour from her mouth, shocking Arnie, who quickly stops the car and gets out. Crystal, in a distressed state, asks Arnie for his blood. Terrified, Arnie backs away from her and ends up getting hit by a car. Crystal, succumbing to her vampiric instincts, starts licking the blood off the ground. After Crystal drove by herself, then burned the car and started walking. Roman confronts Bill using Nikki as leverage. Roman reminds Bill that his task is to find Crystal's kidnappers, kill them, and bring her back. Bill responds that he has given the driver until the end of tomorrow night, which Roman dismisses as unsatisfactory. Bill asserts that he never breaks his word, but Roman insists that Bill had his chance and should now stay out of it. Bill refuses, stating he cannot do that and has something to show Roman, implying he is no longer answerable solely to Roman. Roman claims that Bill owes him for every breath he takes, trying to assert his power. Roman counters his threats by biting Nikki on the neck and sucking her blood. Crystal goes into the cabin and washes up. Jeremiah joins her, asking about Arnie and expressing concern for her being alone. He notices that her face is healed and is surprised. Crystal thanks him for saving her life, expressing her trust in him. They share a kiss and go inside the cabin, where they make love and eventually sleep together, unaware that Roman is watching them. Crystal wakes up suddenly to find Roman sitting nearby. She follows him outside to talk. Crystal pleads with Roman to let her go, but Roman refuses and instructs her to kill Jeremiah. Crystal expresses her desire to take back whatever she is becoming, preferring death over her transformation. Roman insists that he won't kill her and challenges Crystal's resolve. He explains that if she truly wants a real death, Jeremiah can provide it, as she won't be able to do it herself due to her transformation. Confused, Crystal listens as Roman explains that everything he promised her is real, but also the opposite of life. Roman emphasizes that by involving Jeremiah, she has already chosen, and the longer she stays with him, the stronger her urges will become. He underscores that every choice, whether life or death, carries consequences, and now she must face them. Crystal returns to the cabin, concealing a dagger behind her back. As she approaches, Jeremiah wakes up. Crystal apologizes, and Jeremiah responds by saying he has something to confess. He reveals that he went to her place the previous day because he was uncertain about something. Jeremiah then shows her a garment with a monogram, explaining that his dad gave it to him when he was young. He admits that he had a crazy idea that maybe she took it from him because she had feelings for him, and it was something to hold on to since they couldn't be together. Crystal, however, responds by saying she is not that sentimental, dismissing his notion and emphasizing her lack of emotional attachment to the garment. The next morning, Crystal gets up and ventures outside, spotting a dog standing nearby. Soon after, Jeremiah arrives driving. Crystal quickly gets inside the cabin. As Jeremiah joins her, he notices she is holding a dagger. Crystal tells him to take the dagger from her, then asks for his hands. She cuts a part of his hand and drinks the blood. Afterward, she tells Jeremiah that he has to kill her. Daniel and Anna are at the doctor's office, listening to an explanation about Rh incompatibility. The doctor explains that if the baby has Rh-positive blood inherited from the father and the mother's body may treat the baby's blood cells as foreign substances and produce antibodies against them. This reaction can cause the baby to be born seriously ill, and without a blood transfusion right after birth, the baby could die. Confused and concerned, Anna asks if her blood is no good. Later, Daniel saw a missing poster for a little girl. He then went to Arnie's garage and saw pictures of him, Arnie, Oliver, and Jeremiah. He then found a paper bag with the future written on it, and inside of it was a picture of a house. Jeremiah and Crystal are on the road, with Jeremiah driving. Crystal remarks that they should have brought the blade, but Jeremiah counters that doing so would feel like accepting defeat. He then reflects on how the light is beautiful when it's dying, one of the few moments that makes him think there might be a god. She expresses her hope that there is a god. Detective Hobbs is confronting Daniel with suspicion. Hobbs mentions that the ballistics report came back and hints at a car accident. He notes Daniel's tattoo and comments on how many of Daniel's associates are dying today, pointing out that one case doesn't even look like an accident. Hobbs expresses his reluctance to question a fellow officer, but admits he has a strong feeling that Daniel is hiding something. He suggests that the deaths of all these people must be connected to someone they all knew, implying that Daniel has knowledge about the situation. Hobbs's confrontation is tense, filled with insinuations that Daniel's involved in or knows more about the recent string of deaths than he is letting on. Meanwhile, Bill is having a conversation with Mr. Manningham. Mr. Manningham remarks on the beauty of the symbol of sacrifice, to which Bill gives a non-committal response. Mr. Manningham notes that Bill's employer has become morose, expressing disappointment as they had considered him a promising candidate to start a West Covina chapter. However, the current incident has become unnecessarily complicated. Mr. Manningham is puzzled by Bill's claim that his employer doesn't want the driver killed, seeking confirmation of the statement. Mr. Manningham suggests that if the girl, Crystal, has changed her mind, there might be a particular woman they could see. Jeremiah takes Crystal to a woman who seems to have anticipated their arrival. The woman, understanding the gravity of Crystal's situation, starts by expressing her knowledge and foresight. Crystal expresses her regret, stating that she never wanted this transformation. The woman observes that Crystal has contemplated killing Jeremiah and inquires if Crystal showed him the blade, which Jeremiah chose not to bring. The woman explains that the blade is the only thing capable of stopping Crystal if she tries to kill Jeremiah. With limited time left, Crystal reveals that 6 nights have passed since her transformation, leaving only the 7th night as a deadline. If Crystal doesn't die, she will be compelled to kill, and Jeremiah won't be able to stop her. The woman instructs Jeremiah to kill Roman and mix a drop of Roman's blood with newly blessed holy water, which Crystal must then drink to become human again. The woman emphasizes that the blessing must be fresh, dismissing the notion of using touched holy water from the church. Crystal dismisses the woman's instructions as nonsense and insists that they need to retrieve the blade. However, the woman persists, introducing her infected child, Emily, as a proof of her claims. Emily, like Crystal, is afflicted and nearing her final night. The woman confesses that she infected Emily out of a desire for the child she never had, now facing the heartbreaking task of ending her life before the sickness destroys her. The woman pleads with Jeremiah to help her free Emily, explaining that the proper way to kill them is through the throat, not the heart as common lore suggests. She urges Jeremiah to demonstrate his strength and kill her, showing that Roman is even stronger. Jeremiah, driven by the need to protect Crystal and follow the woman's guidance, kills the woman as she requests. Daniel went to the Arnie's cabin. No one was there as Crystal and Jeremiah had already left. However, he found the dagger on the table with blood on it. Jeremiah goes to Father Mina seeking help. Father Mina accuses Jeremiah of never being a believer and questions his sudden turn to faith in his time of desperation. Meanwhile, Crystal, sleeping in the car, is awakened by an approaching vehicle, which turns out to be Bill's. Bill begins walking towards the church. Inside the church, Jeremiah, in a hurry, tries to convince Father Mina to help him without delay. Father Mina, however, insists that Jeremiah must believe in his heart before taking the holy water. The urgency of the situation cuts their conversation short as Bill bursts into the church, shooting at them. Jeremiah returns fire, and in the chaos, Jeremiah takes a bullet to the stomach. Bill confronts Jeremiah, reminding him that he warned him not to run, and stating that Crystal's fate is inevitable, while Jeremiah's fate can still be changed. Jeremiah defiantly responds that he doesn't believe in fate. Bill exits the church and moves to take Crystal. He deliberately smears his blood on the car, knowing Crystal will be drawn to it. After Bill leaves, Crystal finds Jeremiah, who has been shot. She urges him to go to a hospital, worried about his limited time, and the possibility of his dying. Crystal is also concerned that if they don't make it and she's near him, she might end up killing him due to her condition. Meanwhile, Emily went to the police station to talk to Daniel. He asked how old she was, and she told him she didn't know. Crystal and Jeremiah collapse on the ground, exhausted and injured. Roman arrives and confronts them, expressing how long he has waited for this moment and condemning their actions as immoral. Crystal, desperate to save Jeremiah, pleads for Roman's help. Roman offers a deal. If Crystal takes Jeremiah's blood, embracing her vampiric nature, he will save Jeremiah. Roman tells Crystal that whatever she chooses to do with Jeremiah afterward is up to her. Mr. Manningham is treating the injured Bill. He poured blood into his mouth and Bill got up. Detective Hobbs confronts Daniel, demanding an explanation for the situation. Hobbs mentions that the little girl has been missing for nearly a week, and that her family, who was featured on the news, is also missing, and the girl mentioned that someone Daniel knows directed her to him. Hobbs presses Daniel to reveal who this friend is, seeking clarity on the unfolding events. Jeremiah wakes up and goes to Crystal, questioning if he is dead. Crystal explains that Roman saved him. They share a moment of admiration for each other, both expressing how amazing and strong they feel. Jeremiah asks if Crystal is hungry, and they go inside. Inside, Crystal reveals that they are at her parents' house. Crystal somberly explains that her parents are dead, pointing out a dress her mother had wanted to be buried in, which didn't happen because their bodies burned in a fire. Crystal then expresses her fear of dying, then they started to kiss. Daniel finds Hobbs sitting at his desk. Daniel asks if Hobbs still has the address to the strip club. Hobbs confirms that he does and makes a sarcastic comment about Daniel suddenly wanting to act like a cop. Jeremiah and Crystal drive to meet Bill, with Crystal expressing her distrust. Jeremiah shares her concerns, but they proceed inside. Once inside, Bill hands them a blade, stating that Manningham claims it's the one they need, though he can't personally vouch for it. Jeremiah questions who Manningham is, while Crystal insists he should take the blade. Bill reinforces the importance of his advice, reminding Jeremiah that he always keeps his word. In this scene, Manningham and Roman are in a house, discussing the imminent arrival of Dawn. Manningham warns Roman that Crystal will be coming back, but not to return to him. She's coming to kill him, and she's bringing Jeremiah, the driver. Manningham, in a moment of contemplation, suggests that if Roman feels a sudden urge to turn towards God, he should know that God is not hiding behind the light. Jeremiah and Crystal arrive and immediately confront Roman. Using the blade, Jeremiah kills Roman and then gives Crystal a mixture of Roman's blood and holy water to drink, intending to reverse her vampiric transformation. However, Bill attacks them, causing Crystal to drop the mixture. As the sun begins to rise, Crystal starts turning fully into a vampire. Bill and Jeremiah engage in a fierce fight. Crystal intervenes, ripping out Bill's heart with her hands. This action triggers her transformation. She then walks to Jeremiah, who stands up, both amazed that the sunlight isn't burning her. At this moment, Daniel arrives and points his gun at them. Jeremiah picks up a gun to protect Crystal, but when he tries to shoot, he finds the gun is empty. Daniel then shoots Jeremiah. Enraged, Crystal moves to attack Daniel, but he pulls out a blade and stops her, asking if she can save Jeremiah. The scene shifts to Daniel, sitting in a house with Emily. Emily asks him why he stopped being a policeman. Daniel responds that he dreamt the same thing his father dreamt years ago. When Emily inquires about the dream, Daniel tells her it's not something for children. Emily then asks about a box in the room. Daniel promises to explain it someday, but asks for her help to bury it in the backyard. He makes her promise never to dig it up. No matter what happens, Emily promises. The movie concludes with Crystal walking. Someone with a car approached her and asked where she is headed, and she simply replied somewhere. Then Jeremiah is seen smiling,